How's it going, guys? I hope you guys are having a great week. So 2019 is officially at an end, and it is time to look back over 2019 and reflect. So there were so many amazing games that came out in 2019, lots of really good gaming experiences, and today I'm actually going to pick and choose my top 10 games of 2019. Here on this list here, this is the list of the games that I actually played in 2019. So my top 10, of course, is going to be picked from this list. There are some games that are not in this top 10, and that is simply because I didn't get to play or finish them and didn't play enough of them to be able to make an informed review or decision as to where they would actually place on my top 10 list. So if the game is not on here, that will be one of the reasons. This, of course, is my own personal opinion, personal views based on the games that I have played in 2019. So please bear that in mind as we're going through this. There may be some games that you wouldn't put in your top 10, and that's absolutely fine because this is your own personal decision. So without further ado, here are my top 10 games that came out in 2019. Number 10, Pokemon Sword and Shield. So this game came out on the 15th of November and is obviously a Nintendo Switch exclusive developed by Game Freak. It made my top 10 list this year because it is the first Pokemon game that I played and completed all the way through, and I really enjoyed my experiences with Pokemon Sword and Shield. I've actually put about 70 plus hours into the game. I've beat the main campaign, beat all the gyms, and I am now exploring the world trying to fill my decks, and I've just really enjoyed it. So this is the second Pokemon game to come out on home console, and it's a really cool game. So it's set in a new region which is called the Galar region, and that is based heavily on the United Kingdom. Now, as someone who comes from the UK, that element of the game was really fun for me because there are so many little Easter eggs and references that you will really get if you are from the UK. The game has about 400 Pokemon for you to collect, 81 of which are brand new Pokemon, including 3 new starters, all of which I really enjoyed. I decided to go with Scorbunny because I'm always going to be a fire elemental when it comes to Pokemon. There are also 13 regional variants. I actually really enjoyed the new designs and styles of the new Pokemon, and I thought they were really cool, and they had a nice little sort of British twist to them as well. There were some really cool new elements in the game as well, including Dynamaxing, which was really cool. I really enjoyed the wild area and the new kind of open world areas that you can explore to collect Pokemon, and I also really enjoyed the raid mechanics, which were very obviously lifted from Pokemon Go. It was really cool dynamic where you could jump in with your friends and play online together and cooperate to take down big bosses. I really enjoyed it. It's the first Pokemon game that has ever hooked me in and kept me there, and I think it's probably one of the most accessible Pokemon games for newcomers to the series. So if you've never played a Pokemon game before, then Pokemon Sword and Shield will be a pretty good one to jump in on to check it out, and that is why it is number 10 on my list this year.
Run, Hugo! Run!
Number 9, A Plague Tale: Innocence. So this came out way back in May and was developed by Asobo Studio, and this game really took me by surprise. It really had a huge impact on me, and I really enjoyed the game. So the setting is really awesome. It's set in 14th century France at a time when France was being invaded by the English army. It's also set during the Black Death, so throughout the course of the story, as you're exploring across the maps, there are rats that will come out that will try to attack and kill you. It's quite a dark time in history, and I think it's explored quite interestingly throughout this game. So you actually assume the role of Amicia Derun, and your mission throughout is to protect your younger brother Hugo, who has a special disease and something in his blood that gives him a special power that the English army and the Grand Inquisitor are trying to capture and take advantage of. The puzzle solving and combat elements to the game were really awesome. There's obviously a lot of stealth involved because you do play a young child that's quite powerless throughout it, so you really have to sort of pick and choose how to attack your enemies, and sometimes you even use the rats to your own advantage. The rats themselves are a really sinister force that are always there, and you always feel as you're playing this game like you are in danger, that at any moment rats could jump out, and you have to really work out ways to navigate through areas of the map safely using light and using traps and certain craftable items. It's a really good game, but what I really enjoyed the most probably about it was the storytelling and also the relationship between Amicia and her younger brother Hugo. There is a really good dynamic between the two of them. There's excellent sort of character development as you progress through the story, and how these children are initially so pure and innocent and quite relatively happy, and then things become very dark as the English army attacks, and it's really a story of survival, and it's really a story of the loss of innocence of children as they are subjected to the horrors of war and disease and the Black Death. But the relationship between Amicia and Hugo is so heartwarming and heartbreaking in both respects, and it's just told so vividly and so well that you grow really attached to these characters, and it really did have an emotional impact on me as I was playing through the game. I really enjoyed my experience playing this game, and as you all know, I'm a massive story driven gamer, so this game has to make my top 10 list this year.
Guess I'm the first one here. I like that.
Number 8, Devil May Cry 5. So this came out just after my birthday in March, and of course it's developed by Capcom. Capcom have had a really good year this year, obviously with Resident Evil 2, which I never got to play, but they've had a really good year this year, and Devil May Cry 5 was definitely one of the highlights in the year for me. So Devil May Cry 5 is set 5 years after the events of Devil May Cry 4. Dante and Nero are back, both of which are fully playable characters, but we then had the introduction of a brand new character called V, who's a mysterious figure who we find out more about who he is and his background as you progress through the story. Devil May Cry 5 is a fabulous game. Visually, it looks stunning. The soundtrack for the game is just awesome. The writing is also really good. The typical Dante flair that we've come to expect, the really cheesy moments and cheesy dialogue and one-liners and quips that we all know and love, they're all back, they're all here, and it just looks stunning. The facial animations, the voice acting, the delivery is just fabulous. But what is so great about Devil May Cry 5 is just the combat. So you can play as all 3 characters, and they all have very different combat styles and abilities, but it just seems like Devil May Cry 5 probably is the pinnacle of really good visceral combats and combat and combos, and it's just a blast to play. Between the selection of moves that you can string together, the different weapons that you can use as Dante, and the different fighting styles that you can switch between as well. I loved Nero's new gadgets and new robotic arms that he could have as well, and how those really changed up and you could switch between them. It's just a fabulous game, and it has some of the best combat in 2019, and I just loved it. I really enjoyed my experience with it from start to finish.
Mario.
Number 7, Luigi's Mansion 3. So this came out on Halloween. Of course, it's another exclusive on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo had like a really good year this year, and it's developed by Next Level Games. It's actually a sequel to Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, but actually Luigi's Mansion 3 was the very first Luigi's Mansion game that I have ever played, and I loved my experience playing it. I had so much fun. So the basic premise of it is you take on the role of Luigi, and you are invited to a high-rise hotel on vacation with your brother Mario, Princess Peach, and a group of toads. The beginning of the game, King Boo kidnaps Mario, Peach, and your friends, and Luigi basically is trying to overcome his fear, travel through the hotel, and make his way to the top and rescue his brother. It's great to see Luigi play center stage and get a little bit of the spotlight and kind of be the hero for this game. I really love that because I love Luigi. He's one of my favorite characters, but it just looks so great. It's super cute. I loved the designs of all the different ghosts. I really love the level designs as well for each of the floors. Each floor in the hotel has a different theme, and they all have different bosses and special ghosts in that as well. So there's a lot of creativity that went into designing each level. The gameplay is heaps of fun. Luigi uses his poltergust to suck in and attack ghosts. There are extra moves that you have as well, including the burst attack, which is an area of effect attack. The suction shot, which is pretty useful to disarm enemies and also for some puzzle solving elements too. A slam attack, which is super sweet and really satisfying when you're slamming ghosts against each other, and then obviously the introduction of Gooigi as well. All of those make for some great combat, great puzzle solving, really nice level designs, and hidden treasures and hidden secrets behind doors and behind objects. So it's just really cool. What's really awesome about Luigi's Mansion 3 as well is you can actually play it cooperatively all the way through the single player experience, and I did this with Dante, where I played Luigi and he played Gooigi, and we had heaps of fun playing it. And then of course you have the multiplayer Scare Scraper, which you can play with up to 8 players. Luigi's Mansion 3 for me was definitely a highlight of the year. Loved the art style, I loved the gameplay, and it was just really cute and really fun to play.
You called me. So here I am.
Number 6, Control. So this came out in August, and of course it's developed by Remedy Entertainment. Remedy are well known for the Max Payne series and also for Quantum Break. So Quantum Break was a pretty cool game that came out a couple of years ago, which was exploring kind of time travel and supernatural abilities, and Control is taking that idea and it's really refined and perfected it. So it's taken what was great in Quantum Break and just made it even better. Control is a fabulous game. It is just the story and the world building and the areas that you develop. They're so out there. The visual art style of it is like nothing that we've seen this year, and it's just really intriguing as you uncover the mysteries of the oldest house and the Federal Bureau of Control. So the Federal Bureau of Control, basically, to explain it to you, the FBC, these are a secret US government agency that's tasked with containing and studying phenomena which violate the laws of reality. Something goes horribly wrong, and their New York headquarters is attacked by a sinister enemy known as the Hiss. You actually take on the role of Jessie Faden, who gains access to the FBC, and she unwittingly becomes the Bureau's new director. And as you're trying to explore through the Bureau, Sekiro and return like reality to it and stop the corruption of the Hiss, you uncover the mysteries of what's going on, who the Hiss are, and what tests and what experiments the FBC have been doing. It has some incredible gameplay and just really awesome level design. The combat is really fun. You have a service weapon that can morph into different forms, which you can level up and upgrade, which are awesome, but your abilities are fantastic as well. So you obviously have telekinetic abilities to throw objects and pull objects towards you. You even get an ability later on to have a shield around you. You have a dash ability, which will be familiar to those that played Quantum Break, but my favorite ability without a doubt is absolutely levitate. Any game where I can fly around like Superman is okay in my books, but Control is a fantastic ride and it's a really enjoyable game to play.
Defend your master with your life. If he is taken, bring him back at any cost.
Number 5, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. So this came out on the 22nd of March. Of course, it's developed by From Software. It's a Souls-like game, but it takes the Souls system and the Souls style gameplay and really perfects it and really takes it in new and interesting directions. So Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is actually set during the Sengoku period in Japan, and it follows the story of a shinobi known as the Wolf, as he tries to take revenge on a samurai clan that attacks him at the beginning of the game and kidnaps his young lord. And as you progress through the story, you're effectively trying to seek revenge and take down these samurai and some pretty epic bosses, but also rescue your lord as well. It's incredible world, visually stunning. The world design and level design in Sekiro is like none other. It's a beautiful looking game. The soundtrack is gorgeous and really haunting. The voice acting is fabulous as well. You can actually play it fully in English or in Japanese, depending on what you prefer. I actually chose Japanese just because it seemed more authentic. But what really makes Sekiro stand out above everything else is the combat and the gameplay. So Sekiro is a Souls-like game in that the combat is punishing and it's really challenging and it is hard, and you really have to learn enemies' movements and their timings and learn to, block and dodge and parry. And it's really about skill and finesse and timing than it is about just sort of brute force. But there were some new additions to Sekiro that really made it stand out above the Souls series and really made it, unique in and of itself. That was the introduction of the grappling hook, which added some great sort of maneuverability in combat and some great options in terms of stealth. But then you also had your tools, which you could use as well, which really opened up a lot of the combat and your options as well. So this character was very maneuverable. You can jump and leap back out of the way, and the gameplay was just really fun. I'm not generally a big fan of the Souls franchise, but I really enjoyed Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and even though it was hard and there were some moments where I nearly gave up on the game, I still came back and I still really enjoyed it, and that is why it's number 5 on my list.
They're here.
Number 4, Gears 5. So this came out in July. Of course, it's by the Coalition, and it is a sequel to Gears of War 4. It's actually the 6th installment in the Gears series. Of course, it's an Xbox exclusive, but Gears 5 for me was a brilliant game this year. I think it was massively underrated. I don't think it got the recognition that it deserved. It took the franchise in new and interesting directions. It told a much more personal story story as well, and focused more on Kate Diaz and on the origins of the Locust, and also on Kate's family lineage and her background. And it told a very character focused story, which I really enjoyed, and I thought that was a good direction for them to go in. It has some great dialogue, some really heartbreaking moments too, some brilliant set pieces and action and gameplay and gunplay. It looked really great, and the voice acting was top notch. But then it took the franchise in new and interesting directions, not only in terms of the story, but also in terms of gameplay mechanics as well. So they actually introduced a more open world area in the maps by introducing the skiff, which allows you to travel around these areas and explore and do side content as well as the main story contents. So Gears as a series has always focused a very linear, kind of on the rails narrative experience, and Gears 5 tries something a little bit different this year and did give you more of an option to explore some areas before continuing on the story. And I actually really enjoyed that dynamic to it, and I would love to see that return. But I really enjoyed the story, the characters, the gameplay, the music, the art style and design. It was a really great experience, and I highly recommend it, which is why it's number 4 on my list.
Look who it is. The stranger that came out of nowhere and now has everyone talking. Some people want you to be a savior, a shining beacon of hope. Those people clearly haven't met you yet.
Number 3, The Outer Worlds. So this came out in October, obviously developed by Obsidian Entertainment. Now my top 3 this year were all very close together. They kept, swipping between them in terms of what was my game of the year. But Outer Worlds was definitely one of the games that I was really up there this year, that I absolutely loved the experience and I loved playing. So Outer Worlds was a really awesome experience. It's set in an alternative future where mega corporations have begun colonizing and terraforming alien planets to varying degrees, to varying results. Each world or each colony is controlled by different corporations which are vying for each other. The story has some pretty interesting themes to it. So there's this whole idea of greed and mass corporations, slave labor, revolution. There's lots of really interesting themes throughout it, and you can choose which factions to side with. It is a very well written game, which is to be expected from Obsidian. The writing is top notch, right from your companions, your main character, right down to little small bit side characters. The writing is consistently good across the main story and all the side missions, and that really makes the world and the characters come to life. The humor is also top notch, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I found the story really interesting, and the story choices and decisions that you can make as well really do have an impact. They really do affect the story, so there is very much this kind of choice and consequence throughout it. It reminds me heavily of my experiences with the original Mass Effect, of just that moment where you're exploring a new world and it's really interesting, all the different factions, and you're getting to know everyone. You get really attached to your companions on your ship as well. They also have loyalty missions, very similar to Mass Effect 2, which I really enjoyed, and the writing is just really great. And then obviously you've got your dialogue options, and you can make decisions and key choices. Your character is fully customizable. This is RPG at its finest. You can even customize your character to be dumb, and you actually have a dumb dialogue options, which is just absolutely awesome and just really amazing. I loved the story. I loved the world. I actually really enjoyed the combat too. I found the tactical time dilation really fun, particularly using it strategically to focus on different areas. So choosing to blind enemies or maim them so they can't attack me with melee attacks, and choosing which enemies to take out first. I just really enjoyed it. It was a great experience, and I can't wait to jump back in and replay through the game again, respec a completely different character, and see what options things that opens up for me in terms of the story, and then choose to side with completely different factions and see what effect that has on the story and the story's outcome. Yeah, definitely the Outer Worlds was a highlight for me this year, and it definitely deserves to be quite high up on my top 10 list of games in 2019.
We will always struggle. It's the choice to keep fighting that makes us who we are.
Number 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So this came out in November, of course developed by Respawn Entertainment. Respawn have had a really good year this year, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was definitely one of the highlights of the year for me. Finally, EA have produced a good Star Wars game, who would have thought? And a Star Wars game that has no microtransactions and is a purely single player story driven game. I love the fact that this game has done so well, because it's proved EA wrong, that story games, single player experiences do sell, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has experienced a lot of praise and a lot of success, and for very good reason. It is an excellent game. So what I love about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is, one, it is canon, so it's actually set in the Star Wars universe and takes place 5 years after Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, and about 14 years before A New Hope. It follows the story of a young Jedi Padawan called Cal Kestis, and at the beginning of the game, Cal ends up having to reveal the fact that he is a Jedi, and for the rest of the game he is being hunted throughout the galaxy by the Galactic Empire, more specifically by the Inquisitors, who is led by a very sinister villain called the Second Sister. So I really enjoyed the story. I found the characters really interesting. I am a huge fan of the Star Wars franchise. I am definitely happy to see a really good Star Wars experience, and yeah, it's a really good story. You do really grow to know the characters and do actually really care about them, but then the game has got some pretty solid gameplay and the level design as well. It has Metroidvania style level design, which is really awesome, Uncharted style parkour and wall running and grappling up ledges and things, which is just really fun. It even has some Tomb Raider-esque tombs, which were brilliant and really well designed, involved some excellent puzzle solving, and were just really interesting. And it was just, I wanted to explore more about sort of the lore surrounding the Jedi, and yeah, I loved the tombs. And then obviously it has some of the best combat to come out this year. So it has sort of Sekiro Souls style combat that is just super satisfying. Initially at the start it does really punish you, and it does take a bit of getting used to in terms of learning the rhythms and styles of your enemy, but once you really pick it up and once you start to unlock some of your force abilities and force powers, the combat becomes really tactical, really fun, and really satisfying. And then it has some of the best boss fights in a game as well. Some of the lightsaber duels are just epic. So Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I feel didn't get enough recognition this year at the Game Awards. Maybe it's because of when it was released, and perhaps next year it will definitely get more recognition. But this game deserved to be high up in my top 10 list this year, because it was one of the best games that I played this year. And if you're a Star Wars fan, I would definitely recommend picking it up and playing it.
I'll soar away into the dawn. No, I wish I could stay here and cherish hope.
Do you dare to walk this path with me? One misstep and we fall to our ruin. So take your first step. It's now or never.
Number 1, Fire Emblem 3 Houses. So this game came out in July. It's developed by Intelligent Systems and Koei Tecmo. It's a Nintendo Switch exclusive, and I am super surprised that this is my game of the year. I've actually never played any of the Fire Emblem games, and I am so happy that I chose to jump in and check out Fire Emblem 3 Houses, because it is an absolutely incredible game. I had so much fun playing this game. I just was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I was. I was not expecting the game to just pull me in. I was addicted to this game for weeks. I couldn't put it down. Every single night I wanted to jump in, play more of the story, learn more about the characters. I loved every moment of it. I thought it was a fabulous game, and the world is really interesting too. So it's set on the continent of Fodlan, and Fodlan basically is divided between 3 rival nations, and these are connected through the Garrick Monastery. You take on the role of a former mercenary turned tutor by the name of Byleth, which can be played as either male or female. And early on in the game, you actually have to choose a nation to support and guide them through school lessons, a series of battles, and help them to grow. You can pick between 3 houses, hence the name. So you have the Black Eagles, which are from the Adrestian Empire, the Golden Deer, which are from the Leicester Alliance, the Blue Lions, which is from the Kingdom of Fargus. The decisions that you make in this game have a very real impact upon the story and where the story goes, and ultimately the outcome and what happens. So even choosing which house to side with can have very definite consequences. So in my first playthrough, I actually sided with the Black Eagles, and I really enjoyed the story. I think the characters in Fire Emblem Three Houses are so well written. They all have backgrounds, they all have relationships. Not only do they interact with Byleth, with the main character, but they also have relationships with each other and interact with each other. The gameplay elements of this game were fabulous too. So the turn-based strategy combat is brilliant and really accessible for newcomers to the series. I found it really accessible, especially because I hadn't played any Fire Emblem games before. It also has some like very Persona 5 elements to it as well during the school months and the school year, where you can actually choose how to spend your time. So you can give lessons to your students to help them level up. You can spend time interacting with different characters. You can have tea with characters. You can go battle with members of your team and characters in your team. You can get to know students from other houses. There's so much that you can do in this game. I'm just blown away by the choice and the freedom that you have as you're playing through it. But the writing was the thing that really drew me back. I really grew to love and become attached to the characters, so much to the extent that I couldn't bear to lose any of them. So I actually switched off the permadeath mechanic that you can have in the game, and I just became invested in the game and loved every moment. And even the ending is super satisfying. And I think I've spoken to multiple people that have played through the game, and they've chosen different houses, and everyone has their own individual perspective on who the villains are and who the good guys are, and whether or not they got the true ending, because that's the ending that they got. So I can't actually wait to jump back into the game, choose a different house, and go down a completely different route. There's so much scope for replayability in this game, and it offers so much value for money. I think I put about 70 to 80 hours into the game already, so I can imagine that you could easily put 200 plus hours into this game, playing every possible storyline and making every possible choice that you can do. Fire Emblem Three Houses was a fabulous game this year, and that is why it is my game of the year for 2019. So there you have it. There are my top 10 best games of 2019. There were some really good titles that came out this year, and 2020 looks absolutely incredible looking ahead. There are so many good games coming out in 2020. So of course, inevitably, the next video I am going to be doing is going to be talking about my most anticipated games of 2020. But before we move on to that, I would love to hear what your top 10 games were in 2019. So which games did you play, and which would make your top 10 list? Which game was your game of the year and why? Please comment below to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I do want to say, of course, a massive thank you so much over 2019 for all your continued support. I am humbled by all the support and positive comments. I have an incredible community, and I'm very, very thankful for that. So thank you so much for all your continued support. Let's look forward to 2020. Hopefully we can continue to build the channel and build the community and just geek out and get more excited about games coming out this year, which I can't wait for. I'm super hyped. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great week. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Bye guys.